Look at this landscape. What do you see? You see silence. You see the scorched limestone of the Valley of the Kings and the skeletal remains of a civilization buried by the shifting sands of time. For over a century, we have looked at ancient Egypt through the lens of archaeology, cold, static, and grey. We have stared at the golden mask of Tutankhamun and seen a god, frozen in an eternal, symmetrical smile. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about this world is a filtered version of the truth? What if we could peel back the layers of dust and decay? Today we are moving beyond the museum exhibits. We are using the most advanced artificial intelligence to perform a full-scale digital reconstruction of a world that has been dead for 33 centuries. We aren't just reconstructing a face, we are rebuilding an empire. In this film, you will walk through the vibrant, chaotic streets of ancient Thebes. You will breathe the incense in the private chambers of the pharaoh. You will witness the shocking biological reality of a king who was a prisoner of his own bloodline. This is not the Egypt of Hollywood. This is not the Egypt of textbooks. Using DNA sequencing, CT data, and neural rendering, we are bringing the 18th dynasty back to life. This is the world of Tutankhamun, reconstructed, and the reality is far more haunting than the myth. Our journey begins in the heart of the empire, Thebes. Today we call it Luxor, a city of ruins. But through AI reconstruction, the pillars of Karnak rise once more. Imagine the color. That is the first thing that hits you. In the time of Tutankhamun, Egypt was not the monochrome world of sand we see today. It was a riot of pigment. The great pylons were painted in brilliant whites, deep blues, and blood reds. The obelisks weren't just stone, their tips were capped in electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver that caught the first rays of the sun, casting a blinding light across the Nile. Using AI to analyze the microscopic pigment traces left on the stones, we have rendered the city as it appeared in 1330 BC. The Nile was the central artery of life. We see a harbor crowded with cedarwood ships from Byblos and trading vessels carrying exotic animals from the land of Punt. The air is thick with the smell of lotus flowers, roasted meats, and the heavy silt of the river. But as we move away from the riverbanks and towards the royal district, the atmosphere changes. We enter the Malkata Palace, the House of Rejoicing. This was the childhood home of Tutankhamun. Through our digital restoration, we can see the lush gardens that once surrounded the palace. Vineyards, fruit trees, and artificial lakes that provided a cooling breeze against the brutal Egyptian sun. This was a world of absolute luxury. But for the boy who would become king, it was also a gilded cage. He was born into a period of extreme religious turmoil. His father, the heretic king Akhenaten, had upended centuries of tradition. By the time Tutankhamun took the throne at the age of 9, he wasn't just inheriting a kingdom, he was inheriting a crisis. To reconstruct the era, we must also reconstruct the people. And this is where the AI reveals a darker side of the 18th dynasty. The pharaohs believed they were gods, and to keep the divine bloodline pure, they practiced extreme endogamy. For years, we were told Tutankhamun was a warrior king. We saw reliefs of him charging into battle, his bow drawn, his enemies crushed beneath his chariot wheels. But our AI forensic analysis tells a story of biological sabotage. The DNA results are undeniable. Tutankhamun's parents were full biological brother and sister. This was a family that had been intermarrying for generations, and the genetic debt was finally coming due. As we reconstruct the pharaoh's physical form, the AI doesn't produce a titan. It produces a fragile teenager. We see the club foot, a debilitating deformity of the left foot caused by bone necrosis. We see the slight curve of the spine and the elongated skull, a genetic signature of his lineage. When you walk through our reconstructed palace, you don't see a king marching with pride. You see a young man leaning heavily on an ebony cane. Among the treasures found in his tomb were 130 walking sticks. For a long time, we thought they were ceremonial. The AI reconstruction proves they were a medical necessity. Imagine him in these halls, surrounded by gold and incense, worshipped as a living sun god, yet unable to walk 100 paces without agonizing pain. This contrast between the outward glory of Egypt and the internal decay of its ruler is the key to understanding this period. The empire was at its peak, but the heart of the monarchy was failing. But Egypt was more than just its king. To truly reconstruct this world, we must look at the people who built it. AI allows us to simulate the Thebes festivals, massive celebrations where the streets of Thebes were flooded with thousands of citizens. Our AI models have reconstructed the diet, the clothing, and the sounds of the new kingdom. The elite wore linen so fine it was almost transparent, pleated with meticulous care. They wore elaborate wigs made of human hair and beeswax, scented with expensive oils. In the marketplaces, we see the true economy of the era. This was a world before coinage. People bartered with grain, beer, and copper weights called deben. Through neural rendering, we can recreate the vibrant stalls of the craftsmen, the goldsmiths, the potters, and the weavers. But there is a shadow over this reconstruction. The era of Tutankhamun was also a time of plague. DNA analysis of the royal mummies has detected traces of malaria and other parasitic infections. Even in a palace of gold, death was a constant neighbor. The AI reconstruction of the royal apartments shows us the medicine jars, the protective amulets, and the shrines to Bes, the protector of children and the household. We see a society that was hyper-advanced in engineering and art, yet completely vulnerable to the invisible forces of nature. This tension defined their existence. Every monument they built, every prayer they carved into stone, was an attempt to achieve the one thing their biological bodies could not: immortality. And so, we come to the moment of truth. We have reconstructed the city, the palace, and the DNA. Now we use AI to bridge the final gap. We are stripping away the golden mask. Watch as the AI processes the CT data. We start with the bone, the narrow jaw, the prominent overbite, the large eye sockets. We add the soft tissue, calibrated by the genetic markers for skin tone and hair texture found in New Kingdom populations. This is not a statue. This is a person. Look at his face. He is 19 years old. There is a weariness in his eyes that no golden mask could ever capture. He has the soft features of his mother and the sharp, elongated profile of his father. This is the boy who tried to restore the old gods. This is the boy who was forced to marry his half-sister to solidify a crumbling throne. When you see him in this reconstructed light, the curse of the pharaohs takes on a new meaning. The real curse wasn't a spell cast on his tomb. It was the genetic legacy he was born with. He died suddenly, perhaps from a fall or a complication of a broken leg, weakened by malaria. His tomb was finished in a hurry, a small, cramped space that was never meant for a king of his stature. The gold was piled high to distract from the tragedy of his short life. The AI reconstruction of Tutankhamun's world reminds us that history is not a collection of objects. It is a collection of moments. When we look at the ruins of Egypt today, we see the end of the story. But through the power of technology, we can experience the beginning. We can see the Nile as a shimmering blue ribbon of life, the temples as cathedrals of color, and the pharaoh as a human being who felt the heat of the sun just as we do. Tutankhamun was the last of his line. When he was laid to rest, an entire era of Egyptian history was buried with him. The generals who followed him erased his name from the monuments, trying to hide the golden lie of his father's heresy. But they failed, because 3,300 years later, we are here. We have used the tools of the future to reclaim the truth of the past. What do you see when you look at this reconstruction? Do you see a king, or do you see a boy? Does the gold still shine as bright now that you know the pain it was meant to hide? The sands of Egypt still hold many secrets, And with every scan, every algorithm, and every reconstruction, we are getting closer to the truth. If you want to walk through more lost worlds, from the neon streets of ancient Babylon to the marble halls of Rome, join us, subscribe, and turn on notifications to be part of our journey as we rebuild history, one pixel at a time. The past is no longer lost. It is being rendered. Thank you for watching.